Hello there folks, today we're going to take a look at the game called Rogue Angels, Legacy of the Burning Suns. It's in the Burning Suns universe, and this is a rough prototype that I have in front of me with some cardboard standees and cards and things, but eventually the game will look much more awesome, and it will be on Kickstarter from February 1st. It's a legacy slash campaign game. You will go through the missions for the story. You are mercenaries working for some people, you know, and going on your spaceship, like, you know, it reminds me of the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of a thing here. But yeah, you are going through the different missions trying to accomplish things in a particular number of turns. So without further ado, let's just take a look at how the game works. So as you can see here, I just made a random setup. There will be a campaign book that will tell you how to set up the game, and there will be those missions that will have different parts of that. So you'll have a part of the mission, and then a new location on the board will open up, and then new enemies will come up, and there are always some enemies, there are some objects to interact with, and this is basically how you go through, but there is a lot more, I'm sure of that, more mechanics to unfold eventually if you play the whole Legacy campaign. But you will have your character, and here I have Sigil, but there are also other characters, let's say. So there's the Xarax or Curax, I don't know how to pronounce that, a bit of a tank guy, and Veronica, Vera, who is more of a medic and support character, etc. So, and you'll have that one of your boards in front of you. You will manage your rerolls here, your shields, and there will be some scratches. Scratches are basically the ones where it might impact you through the campaign. I don't know exactly how it works. Basically, we'll see. And there are also some of these spots which are boosts. If we get back to that, there are those boosts right here, and those boosts eventually you will get probably some stickers or something to manage that, and then you will get the boost tokens, and they will interact with the cards that you have. And as you can see, here's the board, also very prototypish thing, but there's some artwork already here, and it has the line of sight going on right here. So there are dots in the center of squares. It's basically like a grid here, and it's very simple line of sight. You just measure from the dot to the dot, and if nothing is in the way, I mean, like the characters themselves, you can see through another character, but there's the like walls and the objects, the big objects that you cannot look through, like the closed objects, something like that, the closed doors, etc. You cannot see through them, but basically you can see through the different other enemies, etc. So for example, if sorry, this is my character, and I put my character here, and the enemy is right here, the enemy can see my character definitely. And the enemies themselves, they will have some of the initiatives, and they will move based on those cards right here, the initiative cards, and they will always go back and forth from yellow to red, and maybe from other colors as well. But what it means, there will be some red enemies based on the number of players, of course, how many of the enemies will come up in each mission, and there will be yellow enemies, and they will go back and forth. So it's not like it's random, whoever goes first and whoever goes second. It's always as an initiative. And your character basically, and let's say you have it here, your character on a standee right here, but there will be probably a miniature, will go around, interact with the objects like doors to open the doors, computers to hack them, to hack into the system, etc. It depends on the story itself. And then you can also fight the enemies, or you're trying to use the stealth in order to kind of move past the enemies. One of the missions was like that. So there will be a lot of different things you will be doing with these simplistic actions. but the turn structure here, very simple one. You can do two actions, basically playing two cards, and then you will end your turn, and the turn marker will move further down, and if you reach the 0, you will not accomplish any of the goals of that mission. You will lose, you have to restart the mission, you'll do it again. You can get some scratches, as I said. How they will work exactly, I'm not sure, but we will see. But eventually, like on your turn, how you do that. So you have these cards in your hand. You have all the cards in your hand, and every character has its own bag of goodies here. And so, for example, here I have Zigel, and he has some Oculus Hacker Googles. Then he has some enhanced mech legs. You can jump around. So because you cannot move through another character, but with the jump you can jump over them. They will not be in the way. Basically, it's like kind of not a teleport, but you can move through objects basically. Then they have the jamming rifle and katana slashers, etc. But eventually you will play those cards, and you will play them on your board. And if you can see here on the downside of the board of the character, it has some timestamps here, and these timestamps interact with the cards that you play. So, for example, if you play this card goes to a number 3 timestamp. So that means that at the end of each of your turns, you will do a free action of rest, which basically means you move the card one step closer to the ending of that track, and if it will ever move past 1 to a 0, you will get it back into your hands. So the cards might be powerful, but you will get them like in 3-4 turns, and you cannot use them for that amount of time. But eventually you will play those cards, and there are some cards which have a 0 as amount of time. They're very basic, the basic move and the basic interaction. And how the move interaction works, basically you just move around. You can move diagonally, you can move orthogonally, and like that, like that, like that, like that, like that. So it's a free thing, basically, how you move diagonally or orthogonally. And how you interact with the objects, if you're next to the object, you can interact with that, or if you have a card that has a range, and there are also ranges. Some of the enemies will shoot you from a particular range. They do not have to get close to you. Some are close combat enemies, and with the characters as well. Some of the cards are close range. Some of the cards are ranged. You can open a door from far away for whatever, maybe like hacking, something like that. I don't know how the story unfolds itself. But how you interact with the objects, you always play a card that says interact, then you interact with that object, and then you will take a bag, and you can see the bag here, but it's just a prototype bag. And you will take out the tokens based on your interaction strength. And then you will pull out those tokens one by one. And you're trying to get 3 of the same color, and the white is a wild color, so white can be any color. And then you can stop anytime. You can pull less than the amount you are entitled to pull out, and you can leave the tokens here, and then next time you do the action again, or another player does the action again, you can always continue doing that. But whenever you pull out 2 white tokens during your turn, during that interaction action, you will bust, and you cannot place any of the colors next to that object. And you can interact with the computers and the doors, etc. To doors to open them, computers to hack them, and so on. But as you go through the mission, when you pull out those tokens, if you interact with the object successfully, you remove that object, so you remove the door is now open, and then you will leave those tokens out of the bag, which means there will be less of that color. And then eventually you will interact with several objects, and then you will basically know how many of what color will be inside the bag, and what are your chances to pulling that particular color, or whatever, you know. So there's that. And also with the interaction between the enemy and the The player, it's very easy, line of sight, you fight them, they have some health, and I can show you, these are prototypes basically, but there's the enemies right here. They have some of the stats, they have some health stats, they have the shield stats, so basically if you deal just one hit and the enemy has one shield, it's a permanent thing. They will strike through the shields and nothing happens to the enemy itself. But if you hit them by, like, let's say by 3, then 1 goes into the shield, 1 hit goes into the shield, 2 will go into their life points. And they have some range, and they have the movement right there, so they move for 5, and how much they hit for 1. And when they hit you, you always use the shields first, and you can replenish them. And whenever you play a card, you will also use these re-rolls. And if you can see maybe here on a card, down here it shows a die symbol. So that means that you can roll a die. And some of the cards, they show 0, some of the cards show 2. So you can roll more dice. And when you roll those dice, you get whatever is written on that die, and you can re-roll them based on the focus symbol right here. You can use them and you can basically replenish them, etc. And these different dice, what they do, they add value to your action, like interaction actions. So you can pull out more tokens, or the whatever is in the brackets, basically. Or your movement is higher, or you hit the enemies harder, etc. There are also some extra shields, so you can take shields to replenish them. You can also take the movements. There are extra movements right there. So whenever you play a card, you always roll a die as well, which is really cool, and you can boost your actions with that. Plus, eventually, as you go through the different missions and different campaign stories, you will unlock the boost actions, and these are on those cards right here. And eventually some cards will have boost actions on some of the colors. So if you will progress your color on that color on the character itself, you will also be able, while you play the card, you will be able to roll a die, and you will be able to use the boost action, so you can spend a token from your boost spot in order to boost that card even further and get even more actions. You can do a lot during your turn. So that's basically how you play the game. And one cool thing about the enemies, with the enemies, they have these how do you call them, the interactions, that how they move around, how they want to damage the player. And some of them have some like special abilities or special triggers as well, and they always trigger from the lowest initiative to the highest. They will have the standards, or they will have those kind of the dials basically under them, the final copies that will have the initiative on them, the health dial, etc. It will be really cool components. And you can see the last activity player, so the enemy will move towards the last activity player and then hit the nearest player. It doesn't need to be the last activity player. And then the second red will move to the most distant player and hit the nearest player, and etc. And there will be the yellow ones and the red ones. So there will be all of these different ones that you will be able to get to as you go through the game. And overall, I cannot really tell you my opinion on the game, but let me try to say something about the game. Also, I almost forgot, with this prototype that I have, I also have the hit cards. And if your shield is 0 and you get hit, you get some damage cards, and those damage cards go into your timetable on your, or timestamps, next to your timestamps on your player board, and they will basically be placeholders for the cards, and you cannot play particular cards on those timestamps anymore. One of your useful cards basically. And let's say here, though you play it on a 1, it has some damage when it's drawn, some ongoing abilities. When it's discarded, they will also move like that. They will move as they go, as you go through the different turns. They will also move. You will get them discarded eventually, but they will do some bad thing: laceration, concussion, head trauma, avulsion, internal bleeding. Some bad stuff can happen to you. So as I said, this is a prototype, so I cannot really judge any of the components or aesthetics, etc. It can change very much. And there's the version on tabletop, which is or tabletop simulator, I think, which is a bit of a better version visually, I think, and it has many more missions going on there, and than the physical copy that I have here. But I don't really play tabletop simulator at all. I'm not a digital guy, so I will kind of base my opinion based on the prototype that I received from the publisher. And overly, what I want to say is it has a rather clean line of sight. It has some intricacies. I already wrote them to the designer and told him to make it a little bit more accessible rules-wise, you know. But overall, there's not much going on here. I mean, eventually, I think the most of the game will show its beauty as you go through the campaign, as you go through the different story, and you get those legacy elements as well. I don't have them right now, so it's very hard to judge that part. But you just move around, you interact with the objects, you fight the enemies, or you try the stealth. So you're trying to get past the enemies, open the doors, and there are some, you know, there's some rules in the campaign book where if you interact with a certain object, the enemies will be alerted and then will start running towards you, so you have to run and hide, etc. So all this different stuff, and there are different possibilities. So in one of the missions, at least, there was like you can, if you trigger the alarm, then you have to fight the enemies, but you try to do the stealth, etc. So there will be different paths how to do a particular mission as well, and everything is clear. Everything is good, and what I like the most out of that is the card play. So I like how these cards are played into those timestamps on your player board, and there are some very powerful cards that you have in your deck, and I'm sure you're gonna be able to customize the cards themselves. Maybe, okay, maybe, but I'm sure you will be able to get more cards as you go. And as I understand, it will have at least like 60 missions or something like that, a ton of missions. And you will play through maybe some of them, or like a bunch of them during the whole campaign, and then you will be able to replay as well. And I'm sure you're gonna discover new cards, new things, etc., new stuff for your character. And there will be many more characters. Right now I had 3 characters in front of me. They will have some backstories. They will have also the legacy envelopes. Yeah, this game has a ton of potential, in my opinion, and I'm not the guy who likes space, sci-fi, and campaign type games that much, but I was eager to try it because I always want to discover something new, something different, maybe a different approach to legacy or campaign, etc. Every character has their own ability. They will have different abilities as well. But yeah, I just like the card play. I like how the cards eventually go back into your hand. There's also one of the actions you can do. So as I said, you can do 2 actions, and basically the most things you're going to be doing is you're going to play cards. Play a card is one of the actions, and also the other one of the actions is rest. And when you do a rest, you move all of your cards that are already played on those timestamps 1 step to the left, so you will get them much faster. And if you play a card that has a 1 as initiative, as a timestamp here, you play it there as one of your actions, and then one of your second actions, you will rest, and then you will get it back. Eventually, you will get it back faster. So that's a really cool idea. The damage deck is a cool idea. I like how it is. It reminds me of Nemesis a little bit, how you get some of the some serious injuries, etc. So this one seems to be something like that. It will clog your play area eventually, and you can fail the missions because you can be unconscious if you want to play a card and everything is already there. Like if everything is damaged, all of your positions timestamps are damaged, then you will get unconscious, etc. So the movement of the enemies clever. I mean, initiative, they move, they strike, or they strike, they move, or they do something else. They go nearest player to distant player, etc. To play with the most maybe health, lowest health, etc. So I don't know. There can be bunch of different possibilities. So overall, just take a look at this game on Kickstarter. It might be something you will really enjoy if you are into campaigns, if you are into stories and into character development. I'm sure it has some RPG elements as much as I read about it. So yeah, it's a nice start, and I'm looking forward to the Kickstarter itself and to see what it develops to. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you another time. Bye bye.